Will, he's not moving to me. Is he moving to you?
No, he's got to click it with his
No,
mouse and touch it and move it.
Yeah, click it with your mouse.
if I'm on an iPad. I'm on an iPad. Should I not be on an iPad?
No. Remember I sent you the
Okay,
instructions
I'll
to
join
be
on
on
a computer.
a Chrome? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll be back in 1 sec then.
All right, later. Was I able to hide my disappointment, Will?
Mostly. You did a pretty good job.
Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. Welcome to A Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. As always, we have a special guest. It's episode 29.
Wow.
I know, we can't believe it. I have some banter, as you would expect. So first of all, I am visiting my brother-in-law, and his internet is not great. This actually is a message to him. So I may go in and out a little bit. There's also a chance of cat sighting and potentially visits by my mother. So who knows where this goes?
So why is Tom Lane so cheap on the internet there?
Yeah, I don't know. This is going to be edited and sent to him because I don't know.
You got to find out who his internet service provider is. But anyway.
Oh, I know who it is. It rhymes with Ektrum.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Ektrum is such a familiar word that everybody uses.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then, Will, this is actually our first recorded episode.
Yes.
After we did our now famous live Work in Progress at City Club Raleigh. How are you feeling after that?
That was life-changing. And again, as I said the day of and in follow-up, the fact that you were able to turn that into a pod, nothing short of mind-blowing from a production standpoint.
It turned out better than I thought. So, you got anything, or should we get to this guy? Wait, this guy.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to roll. I want to focus on Liam. That's why I'm here today.
Well, not for me. All right.
Well,
then
I take you for granted.
Yeah, that is true. I'm John Lane.
I am Will Barfield.
And we are A Work in Progress. Oh, I realize you can't see my hands. I'm sitting today. I usually stand because I don't have a standing desk with me. Liam, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you, gentlemen?
Oh, big energy. I love it. Where are you today?
I am Carolina Beach, North Carolina, sitting on a balcony looking at the ocean. So life is good. Yeah, no complaints.
Oh, I wonder why there was a sandstorm behind you.
Do you have a place down there? Or are you just VRBOing it or something?
We're just renting, yeah. So my in-laws live down here, but their house isn't big enough for us and my brother-in-law and his kids. So we all just descend upon here once in the summertime, rent the place, and just have a grand old time.
That is terrific. Liam, I understand you have some news. Introduce yourself to our legions of listeners and watchers, Whipsters they're called, and
Whipsters.
And tell us about your news.
Yeah, so my name is Liam Darmody. I live in Apex, North Carolina, and I am a startup builder. I've spent the majority of my career for the last almost 2 decades, which feels weird to say, building startup operations at companies that are in the technology industry. Most recently, I was at WillowTree, which is a software consultancy based out of Charlottesville, Virginia, with offices in Durham, North Carolina. And I was actually hired there to do recruitment marketing, talent marketing. because of the brand that I've built on LinkedIn. So the chief marketing officer saw my content on the LinkedIn platform, reached out and was like, I'm looking for somebody to help us build an employer brand for our business and do some recruitment marketing and stand up like an outbound recruitment engine. And thought that my sales operations background might be good for that. So I was like, well, I don't have any experience building an employer brand. He's like, you do it with your personal brand every day. I just need you to do that and transfer it over to kind of what we are doing for our company. And I was like, oh, I guess I could do that. So I took the job. This will be no surprise to you based on my results of the test, but I didn't have a job description or anything. I was just like, this sounds exciting. Let's jump in. Let's do it. Did it for a couple years. And then the company was acquired in January by a Canadian telecom company. And I will be wrapping up with the company at the end of this month. And I've decided that I'm going to jump in headfirst to the world of solopreneurship.
Nice.
And I'm going to try and run my own personal employer branding consultancy. So that is what I'm going to be doing effective July 1st. And
what's it called?
That's TBD still. I have a lot of work to do in the next 3 weeks. But I think
this is coming out in 3 weeks. So wait for it to come out and then promote your name via our vehicle.
There you go. I think, my name will be in it. It'll either be my first or my last. I figure that's the best way to go about it because I've established a brand myself. So I think that's what's good, sticking with it.
It's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is great.
I'm terrified. I'll be honest, but
we're gonna touch on that today. We're gonna touch on that today. We're gonna talk about leadership traits under stress, and there are fewer things in business life anyway that are going to add more stress than starting your own consultancy. So let's proceed, shall we? Okay. So again, because I don't have a freaking pointer in this software, which I generally love, we use the OAD, Organizational Analysis and Design Assessment, as the basis of getting the strengths and weaknesses. We've cleverly converted them through a top secret process into into superpowers and kryptonite. You can see this cat's running all over the place here. I'm hard to pay attention. And then I gave warning though. And then we will grill. Okay, I'm calling you Hank. Hank will grill you, Liam, over what we learned today.
All right,
and of course, everyone knows we've covered this from top to bottom. There's no surprises here. We're just phoning it in. We're literally just phoning it in. Okay, so in OAD land, there are 4 quadrants, 13 traits. Upper right is where I am, which means I'm a socially oriented generalist. Upper left is where Will is. He is a technically oriented generalist. I'm a builder. He's an architect. And Liam, you are one of our upper right guests. I guess upper right people tend to get themselves on podcasts, so it's not surprising that's our number one topic. But you are a negotiator like me, but you have quite a unique profile, and we'll get to that in just 1 minute. So, Will, do you want to ask Liam something?
I do. I want to ask him how it feels at this stage in his life to have himself compressed down into a 2-dimensional table. Is that exciting? Is that hard on the ego?
Honestly, it's not, because it took me about this long to kind of realize this is what I was about anyways. I think I spent a lot of my 20s and my earlier 30s like figuring out, what lights me up, what am I naturally really good at, what am I not really that great at. And I think in my 20s I probably was like refusing to acknowledge that I was bad at anything. But the older you get, the more self-aware you become. And so I wasn't really surprised by these results. I've taken a lot of these tests. I love these tests, and I think that the more we as human beings understand how we're wired.
Not a test. Not a test.
Sorry, but not a test.
It's an assessment.
It's an assessment. My apologies.
It's a survey.
The more we take these assessments,
a test connotes pass fail. Now, some other
Right.
of the
Good point.
crummy commercial brands that you may have used in the past, they might be tech.
I told you
not
he was
us.
cranky today.
Yeah, I know, but it's fun. It's fun letting it leach out of me. Okay, let me run through without a pointer.
Please do. This one's very interesting, John.
This is super interesting.
Wide
So,
spread on that E.
as everyone knows, the path to the upper right is the relationship between A and D and E and D. A is assertiveness, E is extroversion, P is patience, and D is detail orientation. So you can see that his A is greater than his D, but only by 1 centile. That means you're sort of open and venturesome to and comfortable with ambiguity. You're okay at delegating, things like that. But then we look at that massive E relationship to D, and that's the largest spread on the table, which means it has the most intensity. And this means you are super open, super social, very optimistic mindset, quick to trust. You like doing your communication style is a seller, not a teller. That's who you are. You're then that low P is stacked right under the A, which means you're a bit of a blend between somebody who is kind of a single threader and a multitasker, but it also means that you're also operate with some level of urgency. So this is I've done many hundreds of these assessments, not tests, and I've not seen, and I've seen E's this high, but not relative to the rest. So we're going to dig into your high E a lot. I will say with a caveat that when we get to your section here of the generic builder negotiators, maybe all of these don't stick, or maybe some stick hard and some don't, just because of the intensity of the readings in the OAD table. So anyway, we're at the part where we start tearing into the stuff. So Will, earn your living.
I will. Hank, I want the pod checks to keep rolling in. So real quick, by the way, Liam, he calls me Hank on occasion because the middle name is Henry, and has fun with that.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that John mixes it up. This is.
I forget who you are sometimes, so that you gave me a good cover.
Yeah. Hey you.
You.
This is the generic slide. Anyone who lands in the upper right quadrant, builder negotiator, is going to get these traits. You're going to see these superpowers. You're going to see this kryptonite. As John noted, your profile has a huge spread between where the E lands and the A and the other factors. So some of this may really stick, and some of it you may be like, yeah, applicable. But can you look at the superpowers first here, and is there one of those that really stands out to you as a fit, or like, yeah, that nailed it?
Persuasive is certainly in there. I'm very passionate and emotive in my communication, and I typically.
How could you show you're passionate? What prop might you have that would tell us that you're passionate?
Hat.
Oh, look at that! How did you have that ready?
I like it. No, I think, and that, to your point, that is a thing. That's part of, like, you can signal to people with certain things. Like if you look on my LinkedIn profile, there's chili peppers everywhere because I'm a big hot sauce fanatic, and I have hot sauce aficionado in my header. And the number of conversations that have started on LinkedIn with perfect strangers asking, hey, what's your favorite hot sauce? It's amazing, right? And so I think you show a little bit about who you are and how you think when you communicate. And it's very hard. I'm not persuasive in like a sales sense necessarily. It's like picking up the phone and dialing and trying to like convince somebody of something. But if it's something I'm passionate about, there's zero chance somebody's walking away not at least thinking differently about it than when they entered the conversation.
Great. Love that. Kryptonite side. Any of those, weaknesses, bulleted, featured items that really, lands with you is, man, when the stress is up or the heat is on, I know that. I feel that. I sense that.
Yeah. I think the third one speaks to me the most. I have had to teach myself, attention to detail and follow up. I've sort of taught myself analytical thought processes. It didn't come natural to me earlier in my career, but I've sort of trained myself to be that way. But I just am the way that I'm wired is I like making people happy. I like, I'm a yellow on one of those other tests, the color test. Like I like harmony, I like collaboration, I like everybody to be even keeled. And sometimes that can work against me, I think, because it's hard for me to sometimes just say, look, like this is the stick that I'm drawing in the sand. Like this is the line I'm drawing. You're either on it or you're not with us. And that can be challenging sometimes. But that's the one that sort of stood out with me the most as the one that I haven't really been able to effectively overcome naturally.
It will be your hardest because the intensity of it, like your A&D relationship, which is the analytical versus the A&D is the open versus structured. They're only one apart. That is absolutely within the range of someone like you being able to adjust to that. But that ED, when that E is flowing and you're mixing with people and you're meeting people, there's nothing better. When you get that stinging email that says "leave me alone," that takes a couple of days to get over, and I think that's just the way it is. That is just the way it is. Will, how many episodes am I going to bring up the stinging email?
I would say at least 1 out of every 3.
Okay.
So, and for those who have watched more than one of these, or maybe all of them, hopefully that joke will resonate. Superpowers. So you went through your results and you sent back over to John kind of your comments on the superpowers piece. Let's talk through these bullets a little bit here. Why did you send these comments back to us when you examined your results? Why'd you pick these points?
Because I asked him to.
That's a good reason to do it.
True.
I like you mean why did he pick? Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I got to pay more attention to your line of questioning. Go ahead, Liam.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of these really spoke to me, and they're, like I said, they weren't necessarily surprising to me. I consider myself sort of a natural evangelist. Like if I see a new technology that's amazing, or I meet somebody that I know is looking for an opportunity, I'm gonna make sure that I'm sort of yelling from the hills what I'm thinking about that specific thing, and sharing it with other people. Like my desire to share something that I think is cool with other folks is very strong. I think from a driving standpoint, LFG, like I'm a startup guy, I'm a builder. I love to rally around an exciting idea and stand it up, and if possible, scale it as fast as possible. But so I'm always looking to just like, okay, on to the next thing. Let's move on to the next thing. What's going to keep things exciting and I don't mean that in terms of like jobs, like job jumping. I mean in terms of like projects. It's like, okay, we've hit the nail on the head for this. Let's go do something else now, right?
Right.
Self-confident. This one I think is probably, I teeter, right? I'm very emotional based on my results, and so I think sometimes I feel very self-confident. I feel more self-confident now than I ever have before, because I'm spending a lot of time doing things that are within my strong suit, right? I think a lot of my career, I was kind of I hadn't figured that out, so I wasn't fully confident yet. I also think that being a parent made me a lot more self-confident because it just gives you a whole different perspective. Optimistic. Life is too short to be negative. I think like I've been throughout peaks and valleys in my career. I mean, the startup that John and I were working at was incredibly energetic, incredibly exciting for a period of time, and then it quickly was not. Same with the startup that I went after that, right? And it was like this massive dopamine hit for 2 or 3 years, and then it started to sort of kind of peter off. And so you have to sort of maintain optimism and realize that every hurdle that you encounter is only short term, and you'll get to the next thing, right? And so I try not to spend too much time focusing on negativity. And then tasks, I think there's strengths in numbers and specialization. So like, if I'm working with people and somebody's really good at being detail oriented and project management, that is naturally my weakest thing. So I'm going to delegate to that person, right? Because I know that they love doing it and I do not. Therefore, I shouldn't try and say to my ego, well, you should just do it anyways, right? I'm going to say, look, let them do what they're good at and you do what you're good at. And together, the two of you will do great stuff. So that's kind of where these come from.
Okay. And thank you for that. John, don't leave this slide yet, please. So Liam, you and I connected back in late 20, thanks to an introduction from John. And, had a little dialogue back then about, what I do for a living and what you do for a living, and, kind of let's stay in touch. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. You are now you're facing free agency.
Yep.
As of this recording today, at the end of June from current employer because of acquisition. You mentioned you're feeling more self-confident now than maybe you ever have. So is that why you opted to start your own thing as compared to emailing me your latest PDF version of your resume and saying, hey, what's out there? Why are we at this moment in life and career, personal, professional, deciding that consultancy and solopreneurship is the answer as opposed to, going and being, somebody else's super excellent company guy?
I think it's that's a great question. I think it has to do with a couple different factors. The first is I feel like I can always go back to that route. Right now, like I have a bit of a runway that, fortunate enough to have sort of amassed from the acquisition itself. And so I can fuel my own entrepreneurial endeavor for a little bit longer than I otherwise might in the future. I don't know. I can always go work at another company. That's not to say that if a phenomenal opportunity presented itself to launch a Series A or Series B company, like I wouldn't be interested in that. But I've also been creating on LinkedIn for 3.5 years consistently. And the one constant out that time has been me saying to myself, what if I didn't have a full-time job and could just dedicate myself to this 100%? Like if I could do this 100%, what would happen? And I'm at a point where it's like, okay, like now's the time. Like life is kind of telling you, let's go. Like let's give this a shot and see what happens.
LFG.
And that's what, LFG. Like that's what I'm going to try and do. And it comes down to being passionate too, right? Like I am so passionate about LinkedIn because my own first person experience on the platform was life-changing for me. I was in a very much sort of sales operations career track, and then all of a sudden I got to try this marketing thing for a while, right? And I was always very marketing minded, but I never had the chops to go and get a senior level position doing it until Willow Tree found me and said, hey, let's get you to do this. And so I think there's so much power in building your personal brand. And it can help you manifest serendipity that wouldn't otherwise manifest itself. And that's why I want to try and coach other people to do it and have the same success that I had and see if I can make a go at it.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, as John intimated earlier, very few things as stressful as launching your own business and kind of wandering out into the dark, not knowing, what the future holds.
Yep.
You bulleted 4 things for us that are the shadow side of your superpowers.
Yep.
When the pressure's on, things get hard. Thank you, Sarah Glova, for that. Superpowers become kryptonite. Talk me through these 4, and then I will hit you with a blistering question.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, I mean, in attention to detail, I mean, it's one of those things I spend a lot of time thinking about ideas and less time thinking about the nitty gritty that funnels into those ideas. And I think what's kind of unique about my experience is that I have been in operations for a large percentage of my career. And, somebody like myself who doesn't necessarily naturally thrive on every single detail or like have a checklist written, you wouldn't necessarily think that person would be good at operations, but I just kind of am able to make it work. And a lot of that has to do with a scattered mind. So I have to try very hard to focus on something that I'm not naturally focusing on or passionate about. From an analytical standpoint, I very, very often trust my gut. I've gone against my gut a couple times and been horribly burned by it. Like just I walked away from the experience basically being like, nope, just go with your gut. You can't ignore it. I believe in that trust but verify component. So I like to analyze data and have data to back up my gut instincts, but my gut instincts will always be kind of my guiding light. I'm a people pleaser. I like harmonious relationships and providing value. Very important to me. And outward looking, I didn't fully understand, and I think that I've mentioned that to you, John, in my response.
Yeah.
I wasn't fully sure what.
Well, yeah. So a couple things, and anything bad that happens on this pod is nothing is bad. It's my fault 'cause I'm the producer, but you didn't have to go 1-to-1 with the other stuff, and so that's totally okay that you don't have something. Cool. But what it does mean is, it's we covered that earlier. It's that when someone's a high E, they'll often look to help others before helping themselves. They're very tied to what other people think, or external validation, or little social desirability or social acceptance. And so, like when Will and I help with recruiting for salespeople, we like a high A and E, but we like the A to be a little bit higher than the E, because sometimes that E, the salesperson can become too close to the prospect and kind of forget, well, you're with them because our company is trying to sell something to them in a respectful, personal way. And so that E can sort of get in the way. And so we were talking about that earlier. So as you think about, that outward view, it trips me up, and mine is nowhere near as high as yours.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Okay, Liam. So as a founder, and the business that I own, I run with my wife, Amy. Amy owns the company, and I work for her. So she technically owns me in every aspect of my life, and I'm better for that, by the way.
Yeah,
but
I hear that.
Entrepreneur, small business, and super exciting. We're 7 years into incorporation, right? So making it past 5 years is a big milestone, and that's great, and we're excited about it. But I did not have any right to call myself a CEO when we started this company. It was on my business card, but I really hadn't earned those stripes. And I'm looking at bullet 3 here.
Yep.
And this is kind of a question and kind of a warning. I also have a problem of people pleasing and saying yes. And because it feels good to say yes.
Yeah.
And you make other people feel good when you say yes. And for a while, as a solopreneur, you can say yes a lot. But if you say yes too much, then the business will suffer.
Yep.
And so, how do you, I'm sure you had self-recognition of this before OAD, but now that we're kind of double clicking on these strengths and weaknesses, superpowers and kryptonite together, I don't know if this is a question or if it's advice, but how do you make sure that you don't overcommit, please too many others, say yes too much, and not let the business kind of wander off into the shoulder of the road? It happened to me. My wife had the vision and saw it, and she tried to warn me all along, and we recovered from that, and we're certainly better for the lessons learned. But man, be careful about that.
Yep. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's about understanding, your makeup, right? Like, these types of traits and where your strengths and weaknesses are, and being disciplined enough to put rails in place, right? So for me, it's going to be, making sure that I may not love checklists, but I should have at least 2 or 3 things a day that I'm like, I'm going to get these things done that day, right? Because I need to hold myself accountable to those things. I will have to make sure that the conversations that I'm having with people are conversations that are worthwhile, and that they're, you're not giving away freebies, right? Like that I think will certainly be something for me that is challenging. Asking for money in exchange for a service is not something I'm very comfortable with. I'll be honest. I'm somebody who just loves to help people. And so I think getting comfortable with the fact that, like, I'm delivering a service of value, there is a value to that service, you should be okay paying it. Like, I'm not it's not bad of me to ask for that, right? But it will feel unnatural. So I will have to be mindful of that and cognizant of that. And like you, I have a very supportive wife who keeps me kind of level-headed and even-keeled, and she's a little bit better at sort of keep me on the rails sometimes if I start to go off. So I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Yes. Well, and great answer, great segue to this slide, John. Thank you for making the flip. So, you've looked at your strengths, you've looked at your weaknesses, superpowers, kryptonite, had this analysis through OAD. The timing is actually pretty apropos given that you're launching the business, and that's a great time to re-examine, our core makeup. What are you going to be able to take away from the OAD assessment and from this podcast today that's going to help you? How can you apply these leadership lessons to launching the business, to your professional goals, other aspects of life?
Yeah, I mean, I think for one thing, especially, I mean, I think the thing that's most unique about this assessment, caught myself, John. The thing that's most unique about this assessment is just how much it shows you where you lie on this spectrum, right? The fact that you all responded the way you did when you saw my like drastic extroversion and then everything else is back on the left-hand side there. I don't think I've ever really noticed that from another assessment. And so anything that falls into that category of, the really detail oriented, the really sort of formulaic, the really systematic, the really process focused, like those things about my day to day are going to be unnatural. And therefore I need to make sure I'm prioritizing them that much more, because otherwise I'll just kind of go with what feels good and natural and easy. And it sounds like some of the things that have lined up here have shown me that if I let those things take over, it'll be a lot harder than if I don't. So that's my biggest takeaway is I'm going to make sure that I'm forcing myself to do some of the things that I don't really love to do naturally, because it's necessary to do that to maintain, that even keel and that go forward plan.
Yeah, you had that operational background. I mean, whether that was a natural, inclination or not, you figured out how to make it work with your career, and you're going to have to lean back on some of that, particularly when it comes to, asking people for money, invoicing for that money, collecting that money, paying bills and taxes and all the unfun stuff that comes with running a business. That are the foundational things that let you do what you want to do, which is what brings you joy.
Exactly. Yeah. And hopefully, that ends up that's worth it, because you're focusing on stuff that you really want to focus on.
Well, is there anything from this today? Can you think of another person that you might recommend that you have interacted with either personally or professionally that would enjoy going through this assessment and being on a pod with us? Any ideas?
Yeah,
enjoy is not highly possible. Enjoy is optional. Will they show up?
There's a couple folks that I've worked with in the past who I think would really enjoy this. Thinking about a fantastic design director that I worked with at my last company. His name's Ryan. I'll reach out to him and see if he's interested.
What, please? Ryan.
Ryan Davis. He's Durham based. Cool. And then another is Zohaib Retu. He lives in Dallas, but he was on my team at Addis before we were acquired by Oracle. And he's a really awesome guy and very intuitive. He runs a networking community for Muslim professionals.
Cool.
And he is, he's very affable, very friendly, very in touch with himself, and in tune with his emotions. And I think he'll probably be interested too. So I'll reach out to the both of them as well and see if they're interested.
We are looking forward to meeting them. Thank you so much for that intro. Wow, what a show. Liam, it's been a minute. I'm super glad you're down local. A lot of good DC folks are coming here. Appreciate you coming on. I'm John Lane.
Thanks for having me.
I am Will Barfield. He's Liam Darmody.
And we are a work in progress. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Liam.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions. Available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.